Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the channel. And today I'm going to give my review of Survivor Series 2007. Starting off the evening, we're going to go to our first match of the night. It's for the ECW World Championship. It is John Morrison versus CM Punk versus The Miz. Number one, I thought this was a good opening matchup for Survivor Series 2007. Back and forth matchup between Morrison, Punk, and The Miz, with Punk keeping the pace of the match. Punk hits an enziguri on Miz. Morrison then hits a Starship Pain for a near fall. Punk then hits a hurricanrana off the top rope on Morrison into Miz, hitting a powerbomb on Morrison. Punk then hits a signature GTS on The Miz, pins him for the 3, and your winner of the match, and at that time, still ECW World Champion, is CM Punk. Hats off to CM Punk for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It's our standard Survivor Series matchup with a little bit of a difference. It's one fall to a finish in this matchup. It is Beth Phoenix, Layla, Jillian Hall, Victoria, and Melina versus Tori Wilson, Michelle McCool, Kelly Kelly, Maria, and Mickie James. Number one, I thought it was an okay matchup. Back and forth matchup between both teams, with Mickie ultimately hitting the finish on Melina. Pins her for the 3, and your winner of the match is Mickie James. Hats off to Mickie James for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It's for the WWE Raw Tag Team Championships. It is Lance Cade and Trevor Murdoch versus Hardcore Holly and Cody Rhodes. I thought this was an okay matchup. Lance Cade and Trevor Murdoch were keeping the pace of the match, with Trevor ultimately hitting the finish. Pins for the 3, and your winners of the match, and at that time, still WWE Raw Tag Team Champions, are Lance Cade and Trevor Murdoch. Hats off to Lance Cade and Trevor Murdoch for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It's another traditional Survivor Series matchup. It is Mr. Kennedy, Finlay, Umaga, MVP, and Viscera versus Kane, Rey Mysterio, Jeff Hardy, and Triple H. Number one, I thought this was a good match. Back and forth matchup between both teams, with Rey Mysterio and Mr. Kennedy starting the match for both of their respective teams. Rey Mysterio then hits a hurricanrana on Mr. Kennedy. Kane then hits a chokeslam on Finlay. Viscera then hits an elbow drop on Kane, pins him for the 3. Kane is now eliminated from this matchup. Rey then hits a 619 on Umaga for a near fall. Umaga gets up, hits a devastating Samoan spike on Rey Mysterio, pins him for the 3. Rey Mysterio is now eliminated from this match. Jeff then hits a Twisted Fate on MVP, pins him for the 3. MVP is also eliminated from this matchup. Jeff then hits an enziguri on Kennedy. Viscera then goes for an elbow drop on Triple H, but missed and ended up hitting Mr. Kennedy. Triple H then goes for the cover, pins for the 3. Kennedy is now eliminated from this matchup. Triple H and Jeff then hit a DDT on Viscera, pins him for the 3. Viscera is now eliminated from this match. Jeff then hits a Whisper in the Wind on Finlay. Triple H then hits a Pedigree on Finlay, pins him for the 3. Finlay is now eliminated from this matchup. Triple H then hits another Pedigree on Umaga. Jeff then hits a Swanton off the top rope on Umaga as well, pins him for the 3. And Umaga is now also eliminated from this matchup. And your winners of this matchup are Triple H and Jeff Hardy. Hats off to Triple H and Jeff Hardy for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is Great Khali versus Hornswoggle. I thought this was an awful match, even if you want to call it a match. Khali was pretty much keeping the pace throughout the entire match. Finlay ends up making his way down to the ring. Finlay ends up hitting Khali, but Khali ends up winning this match by disqualification because Finlay interfered and attacked him, and Khali ended up picking up the win. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It's for the WWE Championship. It is Randy Orton versus Shawn Michaels. I thought this was a great match. Back and forth matchup between Orton and Michaels, with Orton keeping the pace of the match. But Orton ultimately hits an RKO on Shawn Michaels, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match, and at that time, still WWE Champion, is Randy Orton. Hats off to Randy Orton for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is the main event of Survivor Series 2007. It is The Undertaker versus Batista for the World Heavyweight Championship in a Hell in a Cell matchup. Number one, I thought this was a great match. Back and forth matchup between Taker and Batista, with Taker keeping the pace of the match. Taker and Batista both exchange in the middle of the ring, with Batista hitting a devastating power slam on The Undertaker. Taker then gets up, applies a triangle on Batista, but Batista breaks the hold. Taker then hits a last ride on Batista for a near fall. Taker then hits a choke slam on Batista for a near fall. Batista gets up, hits a Batista bomb on Undertaker for a near fall. Taker then gets up, hits a tombstone on Batista for a near fall. Edge is here, and Edge ends up hitting Taker with a camera. Edge then hits Taker with a chair shot. Edge then throws Batista over Undertaker for the cover, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match, and at that time still World Heavyweight Champion, is Batista. Hats off to Batista for getting the win in this matchup. Couple of things I'm going to say about Survivor Series 2007, man, before I get out of here. Number one, this was a solid Survivor Series, man, from top to bottom. I mean, the opening matchup, you had a triple threat matchup for the ECW World Championship between John Morrison, CM Punk, and The Miz. Phenomenal matchup, man. And to be honest with you, when ECW came back into existence, I mean, I feel like, they were going to have Punk run the flagship for ECW, man. He was the number one guy for ECW and that brand. And I mean, what better guy to represent that brand? I mean, CM Punk was absolutely phenomenal. It still is phenomenal in his career, man. And, I think if anybody had a company like that, Punk was definitely the top guy to run any company for that matter. So hats off to Punk for getting the win and retaining the ECW championship in that matchup. One match I could have done without was the Women's Survivor Series matchup. Now, I'm not going to say it was a horrible match or the competitors were horrible, but I did not like the one fall to a finish. Especially when it looked like a standard Survivor Series, traditional matchup. The one fall to the finish, I was not a big fan of. Lance Cade and Trevor Murdoch versus Hardcore Holly and Cody Rhodes. It was a decent match. I mean, it wasn't the greatest match, but it was decent. The other traditional Survivor Series matchup was absolutely awesome. You had Mr. Kennedy, Finlay, Umaga, MVP, and Viscera versus Kane Mysterio, Jeff Hardy, and Triple H. Phenomenal matchup, man, from top to bottom. And then obviously the main event, Undertaker versus Batista in the Hell in a Cell match for the World Heavyweight Championship, man. Absolutely phenomenal match. If I had to give Survivor Series 2007 a solid rating from 1 out of 10, I'm probably giving it a solid 5, 5.5 at best, man. But this is my review of Survivor Series 2007. I hope you guys are out there staying safe, be careful, and remember, stay classic. Peace.